The first time I slept with my enemy, I stole his hoodie, deleted my name from his phone, wiped my lipstick off his bathroom mirror, and escaped through his penthouse like I was fleeing a crime scene. The second time he caught me, he married me. The third time I ran away, he faked his own death. In my defense, none of this would have happened if Damian Blackwood wasn't so annoyingly handsome. Chapter 1. If there was one thing I knew for certain, it was that alcohol was the devil. Not because of hangovers. Not because of bad decisions. But because alcohol somehow convinced intelligent women that sleeping with their arch-enemy was a fantastic idea. I opened my eyes and immediately regretted being alive. My head felt like a marching band had rented it for rehearsal. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. Everything smelled expensive. The sheets felt expensive. The room looked expensive. Even the air seemed rich. Then I felt something warm against my back. My entire body froze. Slowly. Very slowly. I turned my head. And saw Damian Blackwood sleeping beside me. I almost launched myself through the nearest window. His dark hair was messy. His arm was wrapped around my waist. His bare chest was entirely visible. And unfortunately for me, he looked disgustingly attractive. Which was unfair. Villains shouldn't be attractive. They should have weird noses and questionable hygiene. Not jawlines sharp enough to cut glass. Oh my God. My whisper came out like a dying squirrel. Memory slammed into me. The charity gala. The open bar. The champagne. The dancing. The argument. The second argument. The third argument. Then somehow. Kissing. A lot of kissing. Then. Nope. I threw the blanket over my face. This isn't happening. Beside me Damian stirred. Panic exploded through my body. Absolutely not. There was no universe where I was staying long enough for him to wake up. I scrambled out of bed. Found my dress. Found one shoe. Found the second shoe under a chair. Why was one shoe always hiding after traumatic events? I grabbed my purse. My phone. My dignity. Actually no. The dignity was definitely gone. Then I spotted Damian's phone charging on the nightstand. A terrible idea entered my brain. I picked it up. Opened his contacts. Deleted my number. Deleted our text messages. Deleted 3 blurry selfies we'd apparently taken. One involved me sticking my tongue out. Evidence. Destroyed. Then I fled. 5 minutes later I was inside a taxi trying not to scream. My phone rang. The screen lit up. Damian. How was he calling? Then I remembered. He was rich. Rich people always found ways. I answered. What? Silence. Then his deep voice. Evelyn? My stomach flipped. Stupid stomach. Why are you calling me? Another pause. You were here last night. I laughed. Badly. The kind of laugh that made guilt obvious. What are you talking about? You were literally in my bed. No, I wasn't. Yes, you were. Nope. Evelyn. Nope. There was a long silence. Then. Are you seriously pretending it wasn't you? I stared out the taxi window. Damian, I don't know who you slept with, but it wasn't me. His voice turned dangerously amused. You have glitter on your shoulder from your dress. I looked down. Glitter. Damn it. I have to go. Evelyn. I hung up. Then immediately blocked him. Because I was mature. Chapter 2. 3 weeks later I was standing in my bathroom holding a pregnancy test. Positive. I stared. Blinking. Then grabbed a second test. Positive. Third test. Positive. What the hell? The universe clearly hated me. I sat on the bathroom floor for 20 minutes. Maybe 30. Possibly an entire century. Then I called my best friend Lily. She answered immediately. Did you murder someone? What? You only call before noon when you're in crisis. Fair. I'm pregnant. Silence. Then. What? I pulled the phone away from my ear. I know. Who's the father? I stared at the wall. Damien. Another silence. Then hysterical laughter. I hated her. Stop laughing. I can't. Lily. You got pregnant by your enemy. I'm hanging up. No, wait. More laughter. I love this. This is ruining my life. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened. I ended the call. Some people weren't supportive. The following week I had my first appointment. I told nobody. Not my parents. Not Damien. Nobody. Everything felt unreal. The tiny heartbeat on the screen made my chest tighten. I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared. But somehow, I already loved this baby. Which was exactly when I walked into the hallway and burst into tears. Unfortunately, fate hated me. Because the second I started crying, someone said, Evelyn? I looked up. And nearly swallowed my own soul. Damien. Of course. Of course it was Damien. His gaze dropped to the ultrasound picture in my hand. Then back to my face. Then back to the ultrasound. His eyes widened. My heart stopped. You're pregnant? Think. 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 My boyfriend's. The lie flew out immediately. Damien blinked. You're what? My boyfriend. You have a boyfriend? Yes. No, you don't. Offended, I crossed my arms. How would you know? Because I'd know. The confidence nearly made me choke. I pointed accusingly. That's weird. His expression darkened. Who's the father? My boyfriend. Name. Steve. Steve? Yes. That's the fake name you use when ordering coffee. Traitor. I hated that he knew that. His jaw tightened. For 1 second he looked angry. Actually angry. Then his expression became unreadable. Congratulations. The words sounded forced. Then he walked away. Leaving me confused. And oddly disappointed. Why disappointed? I didn't know. And I didn't want to know. Chapter 3. 2 weeks later, Damien Blackwood showed up at my apartment. Unfortunately, I opened the door while wearing fuzzy duck pajamas. The universe clearly enjoyed humiliating me. Damien stared at the pajamas. I stared at Damien. Neither of us spoke. Then he said, "Those ducks look angry. They reflect my personality." I noticed. I tried closing the door. He stuck his expensive shoe in the way. Rude. What do you want? We need to talk. We absolutely do not. We do. We don't. Evelyn. Damien. He sighed. I hated when he sighed. It made him look annoyingly attractive. Like some exhausted billionaire burdened by my existence. Which was ridiculous because I was the burdened one. He was standing on my doorstep looking like a magazine cover. Meanwhile, I had ducks on my pants. Life wasn't fair. What do you want? I repeated. His eyes softened slightly. The father isn't real. I froze. Excuse me? The boyfriend. He's real. No. Yes. No. Yes. Then what's his last name? Steve. Damien pinched the bridge of his nose. Steve isn't a last name. Damn it. I should have prepared. I don't owe you explanations. His gaze dropped briefly to my stomach. Something flashed across his face. Something protective. Possessive. Then it vanished. Marry me. My brain stopped working. What? Marry me. I blinked. Then blinked again. Maybe I'd suffered permanent champagne-related damage. Did you hit your head? No. Are you being blackmailed? No. Do you have a brain tumor? Evelyn. I'm serious. So am I. I stared. He stared back. Neither of us moved. Then I laughed. A lot. Like genuinely laughed. I nearly wheezed. You can't be serious. His expression remained completely straight. The laughter died. Oh no. He was serious. Oh my God. I'll take care of you. What? And the baby. What? And if anyone gives you trouble, I'll handle it. What? You keep saying what? Because my vocabulary had abandoned me. Why? I finally asked. For a second something vulnerable crossed his face. Gone before I could understand it. Because I want to. That answer made absolutely no sense. Which was exactly why it terrified me. 3 days later I was standing in a wedding dress wondering where my life had gone wrong. Lily was crying. Not because she was emotional. Because she couldn't stop laughing. I still can't believe your enemy married you. You're a terrible friend. I'm an honest friend. The wedding was small. Private. Simple. Just family. Lawyers. Witnesses. And one very confused bride. When I reached the altar, Damien looked impossibly handsome. Naturally. Meanwhile, I was seconds away from passing out. His eyes met mine. For one strange moment, everything else disappeared. The guests. The room. The noise. Everything. Just him. Then the officiant started talking. Thankfully. Because that moment felt dangerous. Chapter 4. Married life was weird. Extremely weird. For starters, Damien kept buying things. Not normal things. Ridiculous things. One morning I mentioned liking strawberries. The next day 20 baskets arrived. 20. Who needed 20 baskets of strawberries? Another time I said my back hurt. A massage therapist appeared. At the house. Within an hour. I was beginning to suspect Damien had magical powers. The problem was that despite all of this, I couldn't understand him. He was kind. Protective. Reliable. But emotionally? Locked tighter than a bank vault. He'd make me breakfast. Then disappear into meetings. He'd check if I took my vitamins. Then act completely normal. He never flirted. Never crossed boundaries. Never explained why he married me. Part of me wondered if he regretted it. The thought hurt more than it should. One night I waddled into the kitchen at 2 a.m. Pregnancy insomnia was a curse. I found Damien standing there drinking water. He looked surprised. What are you doing awake? What are you doing awake? You first. I wanted ice cream. He opened the freezer. 3 entire shelves were filled with ice cream. I stared. Then stared harder. Did you buy a freezer for my cravings? No. You absolutely did. No. You did. Maybe. My heart did something weird. Again. Annoying. I grabbed a spoon. Then noticed he wasn't eating anything. Why are you looking at me like that? His gaze softened. You look happy. My chest tightened. Nobody had ever said that before. Not like that. Like my happiness mattered. Like it was important. I suddenly became very interested in my ice cream. Because looking at him felt dangerous. Months passed. The baby grew. So did my feelings. Which was a disaster. Because I still didn't understand his. Then one afternoon everything changed. I walked into a charity gala and saw her. Sophia Bennett. Tall. Elegant. Beautiful. The woman every newspaper called Damien's first love. And she was walking straight toward him. My stomach dropped. I watched her smile. Watched Damien freeze. Watched her throw her arms around him. The room suddenly felt too small. Too loud. Too crowded. People immediately started whispering. They're together again. They always belonged together. I thought she'd come back eventually. Each word felt like a knife. Because for the first time, I realized something awful. I wasn't afraid of losing my husband. I was afraid because I loved him. And I had absolutely no idea if he loved me back. Chapter 5. I made the mistake of staying at that gala. A smarter woman would have left immediately. A smarter woman would have gone home, eaten ice cream, and pretended she didn't care. Unfortunately, I was not a smarter woman. I was pregnant, emotional, and in love with my husband. Which was honestly a terrible combination. So instead of leaving, I stood there holding a glass of sparkling water while silently suffering. Sophia laughed at something Damien said. Damien smiled. My soul left my body. I wanted to throw myself into the decorative fountain. Maybe the fish would adopt me. Lily appeared beside me. Why do you look like you're planning a murder? Because I am. She followed my gaze. Oh. Exactly. Have you considered talking to him? I looked at her like she'd suggested eating a brick. About feelings? Yes. That's disgusting. She sighed. You love him. I nearly choked. Keep your voice down. You literally married him. That doesn't mean anything. She stared. I stared back. Eventually she laughed. You are unbelievable. Unfortunately she was right. Because every time Damien looked at Sophia, jealousy clawed through me. The worst part? He never explained anything. Not once. Not when Sophia appeared at business dinners. Not when reporters started asking questions. Not when gossip magazines published articles about their supposed reunion. Nothing. I tried convincing myself I didn't care. Then I accidentally spent 2 hours reading comments online. Huge mistake. People loved Sophia. People adored Sophia. People thought she and Damien were perfect. One comment read. Poor Evelyn. She's obviously the temporary wife. I cried for 20 minutes. Then got angry because I cried. Then cried again because pregnancy hormones were evil. 3 weeks later I gave birth. And for a little while everything else disappeared. The moment they placed my daughter in my arms, my heart stopped. She was tiny. Perfect. Beautiful. Damien stood beside me staring at her like she'd personally invented oxygen. His eyes looked suspiciously shiny. She has your nose, I whispered. He immediately looked offended. My nose is excellent. I laughed. Actually laughed. For the first time in weeks. Our daughter wrapped her tiny hand around his finger. Damien completely melted. Gone was the terrifying billionaire. Gone was the ruthless businessman. All that remained was a father hopelessly in love with his little girl. Something in my chest ached. Because I wanted this. I wanted us. I wanted a family. But every time Sophia appeared, doubt returned. And eventually doubt won. The final straw came 2 months later. I walked into Damien's office without knocking. A rare mistake. Because Sophia was there. Crying. And Damien was hugging her. I froze. Neither of them noticed me. My heart shattered. I quietly backed out of the room. Then went upstairs. And started packing. Again. Chapter 6. Leaving was easier the second time. Which was depressing. I packed clothes. Baby supplies. Documents. Everything important. Then sat on the edge of the bed staring at the suitcase. Part of me wanted Damien to stop me. Part of me wanted him to burst through the door and explain everything. But he didn't. And every minute that passed made the pain worse. Eventually I left a letter. Not a very good one. Mostly because I was crying while writing it. Dear Damien. I think you deserve the life you actually want. And I don't think that's me. Take care of yourself. Evelyn. Looking back, it was dramatically pathetic. But heartbreak doesn't exactly improve writing skills. By sunrise I was gone. Damien called. I ignored it. He called again. Ignored. Again. Ignored. By the end of the day he'd called 23 times. By the end of the week it was over 100. I still didn't answer. Because if I heard his voice, I might go back. And if I went back, I'd have to watch him choose someone else. I couldn't survive that. Months passed. I rented a small house by the coast. Raised my daughter. Tried rebuilding my life. And failed miserably at forgetting Damien. Everywhere I looked reminded me of him. Coffee reminded me of him. Because he used to leave a cup outside my office every morning. Blankets reminded me of him. Because he'd always cover me when I fell asleep on the couch. Even strawberries reminded me of him. Which was ridiculous. The worst part? Our daughter looked exactly like him. Same dark eyes. Same stubborn expression. Same attitude. One day she glared at her stuffed rabbit because it wouldn't fit through a toy door. I nearly cried. Because it was such a Damien thing to do. At night I secretly checked the news. Not because I cared. Obviously. I was merely conducting research. Very normal research. Specifically research about whether my husband had reunited with his supposed first love. Every article made me miserable. So naturally I kept reading them. Then one morning everything changed. I was making breakfast when breaking news appeared on television. The plate slipped from my hands. Shattered across the floor. The reporter's voice echoed through the room. Business billionaire Damien Blackwood has reportedly died following a late-night vehicle collision. My ears started ringing. No. The word escaped before I could stop it. The screen showed flashing lights. Police vehicles. A destroyed car. People crying. No. My knees gave out. My daughter started fussing. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. It felt impossible. Damien couldn't be dead. He was too stubborn to die. Too arrogant. Too alive. Yet every news channel reported the same thing. Every single one. The entire day passed in a blur. I cried until my head hurt. Then cried more. Because suddenly all the things I never said felt unbearable. I never told him I loved him. Never told him I missed him. Never told him our daughter said her first word. Never told him that every night I secretly slept wearing one of his old hoodies. The regret was suffocating. 3 days later I found myself standing outside his funeral. Rain poured from the sky. My daughter sat quietly in my arms. My heart felt hollow. Destroyed. Broken beyond repair. And for the first time since leaving, I finally admitted the truth. I had never stopped loving him. Not even for a second. I walked toward the coffin. Completely unaware that Damien Blackwood was about to prove exactly how insane he truly was. Chapter 7. Rain soaked through my coat as I walked toward the coffin. My daughter slept quietly against my shoulder, completely unaware that her mother was falling apart in public. The funeral hall was packed. Politicians. Business leaders. Reporters. People Damien probably hated. I almost laughed through my tears. Even dead, he couldn't escape meetings. My chest hurt so badly I thought something might actually be wrong with me. Maybe heartbreak was a real medical condition. Maybe my heart had finally decided it was tired of my nonsense. I reached the front. The coffin sat beneath white flowers. Everything suddenly felt too real. Too final. Too cruel. My legs shook. For months I had convinced myself I was doing the right thing. Convincing myself that leaving was noble. Convincing myself that Damien would be happier without me. Now all I felt was regret. Endless regret. I stared at the polished wood. "You idiot," I whispered. Tears rolled down my cheeks. "You absolute idiot." My daughter stirred slightly. I kissed her forehead. "You were supposed to live forever just to annoy me." More tears came. Great. Fantastic. Exactly how I wanted to spend my day. Crying in front of half the city. I placed a trembling hand on the coffin. "I never got to tell you." My voice cracked. "I loved you." The words hurt. Because now he would never hear them. "And I hated you for making me love you." Silence. More tears. "You bought me an entire freezer because I wanted ice cream once." My laugh came out broken. "Who does that?" Silence again. Then suddenly the coffin moved. I froze. My brain stopped working. The coffin moved again. Someone screamed. Another person fainted. The lid slowly opened. I stared. And stared. And stared. Then Damien Blackwood sat up. I blacked out for approximately 3 seconds. When my vision returned, Damien was climbing out of his own coffin. Very much alive. Looking annoyingly handsome. My grief immediately transformed into murderous rage. "You what?" The entire room went silent. Damien winced. "Hello." I handed my daughter to a horrified Lily. Then punched him. Directly in the shoulder. Hard. Ow. "You faked your death?" Another punch. "Evelyn, punch." "You psychopath." Punch. "You evil man." Punch. "Do you know how much I cried?" Punch. Damien stood there taking the assault while everyone watched. Finally he grabbed my wrists before I could commit actual murder. "I deserved that." "You deserve prison." "Probably." "I hate you." His expression softened. "No you don't." That somehow made me angrier. "I absolutely do." Then the idiot smiled. Actually smiled. "You told my coffin you loved me." I gasped. "You heard that?" Every word. My soul immediately left my body. Chapter 8. The funeral guests were eventually removed. Mostly because Damien's grandmother threatened everyone with a cane. Half an hour later we sat alone inside a private room while I glared at my husband. Ex-husband. Husband. Honestly, I wasn't sure anymore. Damien sat opposite me looking entirely too calm for a man who had just faked his own death. "Explain." "You disappeared. So you staged your funeral?" I was desperate. "You need therapy." He considered that. "Fair." I rubbed my temples. "Do you know what normal people do when their wives leave?" "Cry?" "Yes." I cried. "Then what?" "Called them." "Good." I called 412 times. I blinked. 412? I counted. I stared at him. "That's insane." "Probably. Very insane." Extremely. Then his eyes softened. You never answered. Guilt hit me immediately. Which was rude because I was supposed to be angry. I thought you loved Sophia. Damien looked genuinely confused. Why? I almost threw a chair at him. Why? Yes. Because every newspaper on earth called her the love of your life. Newspapers also claimed I secretly purchased a volcano. Did you? Not the point. I hated that he had a point. Then explain the hugging. Her father died. My anger paused. What? She was crying because her father died. Oh. Oh no. My stomach dropped. And she's not your first love? Damien laughed. Actually laughed. Not even close. I stared. Then who was? His gaze locked onto mine. Suddenly the room felt very small. Very quiet. Very dangerous. You. My heartbeat stopped. What? You've always been you. I forgot how to breathe. Damien leaned back and ran a hand through his hair. Do you remember the science fair when we were 12? Barely. You helped me after everyone laughed at my project. I blinked. A memory surfaced. A shy boy standing alone beside a broken display. That was you? Yes. The kid with the exploding volcano? Yes. Your volcano caught fire. Thank you for reminding me. I tried not to laugh. Failed. Damien smiled. I liked you from that day. My chest tightened painfully. Since we were 12? Unfortunately. Unfortunately? You've been exhausting for years. I laughed through my tears. You're unbelievable. You married me. You tricked me. You lied about being pregnant with another man's child. Okay. Fair. We both sat there quietly. Then Damien looked toward our daughter sleeping in Lily's arms across the room. His expression softened instantly. I knew she was mine. I froze. You did? The entire time. Why didn't you say anything? Because you looked terrified. My throat tightened. So you just waited? I would have waited forever. That almost broke me. Because suddenly everything made sense. The marriage. The patience. The kindness. The way he'd never pressured me. The way he'd always looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. The man had been in love with me for years while I spent most of that time being an idiot. An absolutely world-class idiot. Damien stepped closer. Stay this time. My eyes filled with tears again. No more funerals? No more funerals. No more fake deaths? Definitely no more fake deaths. No more emotional trauma? He hesitated. I can try. I laughed. Then cried. Then laughed again. Then before I could overthink it I wrapped my arms around him. Damien held me so tightly I almost couldn't breathe. Not that I minded. For the first time in months everything felt right. Like I had finally stopped running. Like I had finally come home. And judging by the way Damien refused to let go, he wasn't planning on letting me escape ever again. Honestly? I was okay with that. Chapter 9. For the record, getting back together after your husband fakes his own death is surprisingly awkward. Especially when every news channel in the country is calling him the billionaire who attended his own funeral. Damien became a meme. A literal meme. Someone edited angel wings onto a photograph of him climbing out of the coffin. Another person added dramatic music. One video got 12 million views. I laughed so hard I cried. Then Damien confiscated my phone. You're supposed to support me. I am supporting you. You sent the video to Lily. Because friendship is important. He looked deeply offended. I kissed his cheek. His annoyance immediately disappeared. The man was alarmingly easy to manipulate. Not that I complained. 3 days after the funeral disaster, I officially moved back home. Our daughter immediately claimed ownership of the entire house. Including Damien. Especially Damien. I discovered this when I walked into his office one morning. My terrifying billionaire husband was sitting in a business meeting, with our daughter asleep on his chest. 5 executives sat around the conference table pretending this was normal. It wasn't. One executive was visibly sweating. Another looked terrified to breathe. Damien didn't even notice. He was too busy gently rubbing our daughter's back. My heart nearly exploded. Unfortunately, he noticed me staring. What? Nothing. Nothing at all. Just me falling in love with you all over again. Which I absolutely did not say out loud. Because I valued my dignity. A little. That evening we sat together on the balcony after putting our daughter to sleep. The city lights sparkled below. Everything felt peaceful. Comfortable. Dangerously romantic. Damien handed me a mug of hot chocolate. I immediately became suspicious. What do you want? He looked offended. I can't do something nice? No. That's fair. I sipped the drink. Then nearly moaned. Okay, that's amazing. His mouth twitched. I know. Silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable silence. The good kind. The kind that felt like home. Then Damien suddenly spoke. I hated your fake boyfriend. I almost choked. Steve? Especially Steve. I started laughing. He wasn't even real. I know. You were jealous of an imaginary man. He knew what he was doing. I laughed harder. Damien looked completely serious. I spent weeks wanting to punch Steve. Oh my God. He had a very punchable face. He didn't have a face. Exactly. I nearly fell out of my chair. The image of Damien being jealous of a fictional boyfriend was simply too much. Then he smiled. A real smile. The kind he rarely showed anyone. And suddenly I couldn't laugh anymore. Because every time he looked at me like that, my heart forgot how to function. His gaze dropped briefly to my lips. The air changed. The mood shifted. My pulse accelerated. Damien slowly leaned closer. Can I kiss my wife now? Heat rushed into my face. The fact that he was asking somehow made everything worse. Or better. Definitely better. Depends. On? You promise never to fake your death again. A pause. Reasonable. Good. Then he kissed me. And for a moment nothing else existed. Not our mistakes. Not our misunderstandings. Not the years we'd wasted. Just us. Finally. Actually. Us. When we eventually pulled apart, Damien rested his forehead against mine. You're never allowed to disappear again. I smiled. You climbed out of a coffin. Answer the question. I laughed softly. I'm staying. The relief that crossed his face nearly broke my heart. Because only then did I realize how scared he'd been. How scared we'd both been. Neither of us said it. We didn't have to. We already knew. Chapter 10. 6 months later my life was perfect. Suspiciously perfect. Which meant something terrible was probably coming. That was usually how my luck worked. Fortunately, the terrible thing turned out to be much smaller than expected. Specifically 2 feet tall. And wearing 1 pink sock. Our daughter had discovered running. Unfortunately, she'd also discovered that being chased was fun. Get back here. She shrieked with laughter and sprinted down the hallway. Damien chased after her. Which was objectively hilarious. Because this feared billionaire businessman could negotiate billion-dollar deals without blinking. Yet a toddler was defeating him daily. Come back. More laughter. Tiny footsteps. Chaos. I watched from the couch while eating strawberries. Because some things never changed. Eventually Damien caught her. She immediately protested. Loudly. Traitor, I informed her. She pointed at me. Mama. Don't drag me into this. Damien dropped beside me holding our squirming daughter. His arm automatically settled around my shoulders. Natural. Effortless. Home. Exactly where it belonged. A few moments later the doorbell rang. Lily walked inside carrying coffee. She took one look at us and groaned dramatically. I hate all of you. Good morning to you too. You were supposed to be a tragic romance. I laughed. What? You know. Heartbreak. Drama. Emotional suffering. Damien looked confused. There was emotional suffering. Not enough. I nearly spit out my strawberry. Lily pointed at us. Look at you. We did. Damien holding our daughter. Me tucked against his side. Both of us smiling. Happy. Ridiculously happy. Lily shook her head. Disgusting. Then she handed me my coffee. I accepted it proudly. Because honestly? She wasn't wrong. We were disgustingly happy. Later that night, after our daughter had fallen asleep, Damien and I stood in the nursery watching her dream. The moonlight illuminated her tiny face. For several moments neither of us spoke. Then Damien slipped his hand into mine. She's perfect. I smiled. She gets that from me. Obviously. I rolled my eyes. Then leaned against him. Comfortable. Content. At peace. The journey had been messy. Complicated. Ridiculous. Filled with lies. Misunderstandings. Pregnancy. Fake boyfriends. Fake deaths. And one very dramatic billionaire. But somehow it had all led here. To this moment. To this family. To this love. Damien looked down at me. The same way he always did. Like I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Even after all these years. Even after all the chaos. And this time, instead of looking away, I smiled back. Because now I finally understood the truth. The boy who'd loved me since he was 12 never stopped. The man who married me never regretted it. And the husband who climbed out of his own coffin? Well. He was completely insane. But he was my insane husband. Forever. Epilogue. 10 years later. I was peacefully drinking coffee when my daughter walked into the kitchen. Mom. Yes? I think a boy likes me. I immediately choked. Across the room Damien slowly lowered his newspaper. The atmosphere became threatening. Very threatening. Our daughter noticed. Oh no. Damien smiled. The exact smile villains use before committing crimes. Tell me his name. Absolutely not. Smart choice. She fled. Immediately. I laughed so hard I nearly cried. Damien looked offended. What? You're terrifying. I prefer protective. You interrogated her kindergarten teacher. He knew what he did. I laughed harder. Damien pulled me into his lap. Just like he had done 1,000 times over the years. Just like he always would. Outside, our daughter was laughing. Inside, the house felt warm. Full. Happy. The kind of happiness I once thought belonged to other people. Not me. Yet here it was. My happily ever after. The enemy I fell for. The husband I ran from. The man who loved me first. And the family we built together. Turns out the best love stories don't begin with perfect first meetings. Sometimes they begin with mistakes. A lot of mistakes. A fake boyfriend. A fake death. And one very stubborn man who refused to let the love of his life go. The end. This was brought to you by Romance Hobbit. If this story moved you, subscribe. A new video is already waiting for you.